You're live.
There we go. Good evening, pescatarians. It's lovely to see you. I'm not sure if you got that right at the very beginning. How many have we got in
52.
here? 52 people in here this evening on this beautiful Thursday evening. Firstly, I hope you had a delicious and steamy Valentine's Day on Wednesday. And what a wonderful way to crescendo your way to the weekend and spending time with myself and Eamonn here as the two original pescatarians, which now is an enormous, almost like that running scene in Forrest Gump, where he goes for a little run with those lovely trainers and it ends up being this lovely journey down the Grand Canyon. We've now got an enormous sort of a multitude of you here. It's great to have you here. We're very, very sort of grateful that you've taken the time on a Thursday night. Many of you as well might have been at the very first one we did, sort of back towards the tail end of last year.
We'll get it a little bit better this time. Which was an hour and a half long with one dish. We're hoping for 30 minutes and 4 dishes.
Exactly that. So this is more like chef's table, whereas that more like chef's purgatory. So we're definitely going to sort of accelerate it. So while we have it down for an hour, I actually think what we've tried to do is give you 4 recipes that you will have seen in the email earlier on today. 4 recipes that can show you how to not be all these sort of silly, pretentious ingredients, but to show you how you can take this beautiful produce and just elevate it with the most sort of simple cooking and the fewest possible ingredients. So we've got 4 recipes that between Eamonn and myself are going to cook tonight. Firstly, I'm going to introduce you to the very first pesky smoked haddock, which we're going to come.
You want to introduce yourself first?
I think. Well, I am the podgy face of pesky. You guys are probably all too aware from having had the purgatory of reading the emails every day. I'm Ben, and as I said, this is Eamonn. So we've been doing pesky since 2018 in a variety of different guises. Many of you hopefully have been here since the very beginning, but we launched the consumer market back in 2020 at the advent of lockdown. As last night would have been a testament to, the growth of this incredible community of conscientious, fish-loving, food-loving enthusiasts is just growing and growing and growing. I'm not sure if any of you guys know this. We don't spend a penny on marketing. Because we recognize that all our job is to get as much beautiful regenerative produce to you as possible, and it is you who are growing the community. So that's why we're incredibly grateful, and we're just trying this as a medium to hopefully give you the recipes that make the occasional jump of confidence to should I buy that product, to go and do it. That's what we're hoping to do tonight. So let's get cracking. Now, what I was going to say is, are you going to send the recipes? Hello, Sarah. So I'm not sure if you received, I'm going to have to crash down here, I think. I'm not sure if you received the email earlier on today, but if you click into that email, you would have seen all 4 recipes. If you click on the name of the recipes, you'll be able to go and find them immediately.
Yeah, and if you didn't get the email, we'll send you an email tomorrow. For anyone who registered late or anything like that, we can send you an email ASAP, and you'll be able to get the recipes. And you'll be able to watch this video back again if...
There we go.
If you really feel like it.
So 4 recipes for those who didn't see on the email earlier. We've got smoked haddock, pesky smoked haddock, and I'm going to give you a little bit of the juice as to why this is such an incredible product that will defy any of the crap smoked haddock that you would have had in your life. Then, as the sort of second amuse-bouche, we've got our hand-dyed scallops from the Firth of Clyde up in Scotland from a diver called Tom. We're then going to move into lovely Langoustine. Where's the camera? There it is. Lovely Langoustine. It's a Creole cut Langoustine from Oban. The sort of far more prolific in demand than Glastonbury tickets. And then we're going to come into, as our beautiful assistant here is demonstrating, monkfish with a somtam salad. Now, the reason we've chosen all of these, as I said, is to show you how you can cook with the fewest ingredients and in about 5 or 10 minutes at tops. So even on the last dish on the monkfish, I'm going to create a somtam salad, which is just sensational to have alongside the sweet and sort of clean meats. So shall I jump straight into the haddock?
Go for it.
So for most of you, and again, ask any questions you've got as you come along.
I should bring the haddock down here.
Yes, it's a good idea.
On the camera.
So ask as many questions as you like. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how filthy. There's no content moderation at this stage. So feel free to just chuck anything that you want at me, and I promise I'll answer all of them. So what you'll see here is, I'm going to bring this a little bit closer into the screen, is a smoked haddock. Now, for those of you who've had smoked haddock before, anyone who's bought it even in a fishmonger, but especially in the supermarket, what you'll notice is that it generally smells so fishy and so pungent. And the reason for that is smoked haddock was originally used as a product that could last for a very long period of time. So the producers of it would allow that fish to get right to the end of its lifespan, where the bonds between the meat were as loose as possible, so it would absorb as much smoke, and that would then enable the shelf life to be as long as possible. That is unfortunately quite horrible when it comes to the flavour, because it gives this enormous fishy aroma. And so when we were looking at the way that we want to take this beautiful, very famous British produce, but actually make it, exponentially better than it was before, the challenge to the smokehouse was we want to deliver that beautiful smokiness, but we don't want any fishiness, because we want this to be something that every single person will use. And that is what we have here, which is why today the recipe we're going to be doing is one of the most simple recipes. It's not even a recipe, it's literally just a carving, and that is smoked haddock carpaccio. So all of this smoked haddock comes from, and for those, I've just seen Deb O'Shea's popped up. Great to see you, Deb. Hopefully Rob's watching. This smoked haddock all comes from Ullapool Smokehouse. So those of you who had the hot smoked salmon, the cold smoked salmon, the very first thing that we ever sold at Pesky. All of the salmon, all of the haddock itself comes from, we built the sort of direct link with a netter in Fraser, in Peterhead, so coming from one of the sort of larger netted boats there, which is why you'll see sort of very clean, beautiful meat, none of the sort of trawled rubbish that gets all bloody and horrible. And the production process is really simple, so it's very, very similar to what Ian does with the smoked salmon. So he'll brine it, and not putting it in. So brining is not what most people would consider brining to be. It's not sort of sticking it in very salty water. It literally is covering it in rock salt. So you're extracting some of the water so that you can create essentially a base. We call it a substrate, but a base layer for the smoke to go into. And that brining is usually around 2 hours. It's actually a little bit lighter with these because these are smaller fillets. Off the back of that, what we then do is put a tiny little bit of sugar into the salt, and that just again helps to sort of create that space and amplifies the flavour of the meat. And because we're taking it literally straight out of the water once it's been filleted, there's no degradation, so the fish hasn't gone all stinky winky, and it smells absolutely beautiful. And that salt and that very slight sweetness just make space for it to then go into the kiln. So you'll see on it, most smoked haddock has got the horrible green dye, so it looks like a big old bogey. This doesn't look like that at all. This is like a beautiful sort of dark, almost golden hue. And that comes from spending only sort of 5 or 6 hours inside the little tiny kiln up in Ullapool. And what we're trying to do with this is get that sort of beautiful balance between sort of getting the smokiness, but also leaving enough space so that the white fish can, and sort of the sort of quality of the white fish can come through. So you really don't want it in there too much. But what you'll see, I'll bring a little piece over to the camera now, so you can have a shift on, is in here you get a sort of a variety. So you can see where the smoke has penetrated deep into the top, but it's left the meat inside sort of beautiful and sort of translucent. And you can just see, like, because it's had that salt and that little bit of sugar in it, and it's had that brining process, it's made the meat sort of nice and dense, but it's not overly chewy. So you've got this sort of almost beautifully slightly gummy texture when it comes to the flavour. To the texture profile. So all I'm doing here is literally cutting it up, slicing it exactly like I would do with some smoked salmon. And I'm going to give it to our wonderful friends next to me, Terry and Estrella, to start tucking into. Now, don't eat all of that, otherwise you won't want to eat any of the other dishes, because there's an astronomical amount here. But unlike with smoked haddock that you put it inside a fish pie, or usually mask its flavour with other things, you don't want to mask the flavour, you want to maybe amplify it. So to complement with that smokiness, we've just put a basic chimichuri in here. So we're relying on a little bit of heat, a little bit of the citrus, a little bit of the spice to just amplify it. And that's it. And that literally, you can put that on a dinner table. You can have it instead of, like, for pescatarians, if you don't want a salami or anything like that, that is your dish. Look how quickly that was to make.
When is it available? Was the first?
So, well, it's a good question. So we're going to have it in, when are we going to ask about Hammond? So we'll have this not next week, but the week after. So one of the things which we're just slightly tweaking in it is the size of the fish, because I want a slightly bigger fish than what you can see here, so that you can almost have a beautiful transition of texture and taste through the fillet. So you want a thicker fish where the smoke's heavy on the top, but the middle of it is really light. So it's similar to how we do the scallops, so beautifully seared on the top and crispy, and then just all soft and sweet on the inside. So we should hopefully have that done in the next 2 weeks. The guys at the smokehouse are doing a fantastic job. So yeah, and it will be available for you to buy, to put in your fish pies, but as I said, to just have as a beautifully diverse product that is, I'd say, almost a really good entry product for people who haven't had that much fish before. So I'm going to put this away here.
All right, and I'm going to crack on with the scallops. So we've just put a little bit of flour on these, a little bit of salt and pepper for seasoning, and then they're going straight into a hot pan. So scallops have always been one of the best sellers, right? Yeah,
absolutely. So the for those of you who would have seen last night, while we had 90 seconds of the Langoustine being on the market to not being on the market, which as Teddy and Laura, many of you may have interacted with Laura over the time, I messaged them saying, guys, have we taken the Langoustines off the market, because I can't see them. I'm getting messages from people saying the Langoustines aren't there, but unfortunately they've sold through a ridiculous place. But the good thing is we've now got for Monday we've got 3 times the amount of Langoustine, so there's going to be enough for everyone to go around from there. But scallops have always been the most popular line on Pesky, and the rule of thumb that we generally find in terms of what tends to be most popular are items that people struggle to get, whether that be in a supermarket or even the fishmonger. And hand-dyed scallops are very hard to come across because the vast majority of them are caught through this disgusting method called dredging. So when you see people sort of mask sort of selling dredged scallops by saying, okay, like a sort of inshore or dayboat caught, if you knew what dredging does to the ground, it basically is like running an enormous rake through it, which isn't particularly great for the marine environment or for the fish that sit inside it. Whereas every single one of the scallops that you've ever bought from Pesky have either been caught, 99.9% of them have been dived by Fraser Pugh down in Devon. Guy, great friend of mine and great friend of ours who we've been working with since 2018. These ones, while Fraser gets a new boat back in the water, unfortunately, his boat sank during the storms in December. So he's actually used this as an incredible opportunity, having seen the sort of demand that you guys have put his way. He's now got a bigger boat with 3 times the sort of canopy size to be able to get more divers on. So hopefully we can get and increase that sort of quantity of diver scallops to you. But tonight's are actually from a brilliant man called Tom, who dives them in the Firth of Clyde, so on the west of Scotland. And it's only because we wanted to continue to build the distribution routes up into Scotland, like these Langoustine that you'll see here, all from 2 boats fishing out of Oban. Scotland has one of the most rich sources of seafood, especially shellfish, all across Europe. So it would be madness for us to not try and create those links for regenerative fishermen to be able to sell on the Pesky market. As we saw last night, you guys are there with sort of open hands, sort of willing to gobble up everything of which they send. So Fraser will be back in the next couple of weeks, but we'll also be complementing his landings with that from Tom on the west coast, alongside loads of other little fish species coming onto the market in the next couple of weeks.
These are pretty much done. It's just flip them over, put a little bit of butter, a little bit of garlic in, and then when they are cooked in about a minute, we'll take them off and put in a little bit of basil and a few little lemon slices to flavour them up, and then you are good to go with the scallops. So about 5 minutes in total.
5 minutes. So let me give another hypothesis as to why I think scallops are so popular. Because there is no other fish, maybe with the exception of monkfish. So monkfish, as you'll see here, monkfish have 1 bone that runs up between its head and the bottom and its tail. So there's no ribs or anything like that gets in the way. And I think one of the reasons why people love monkfish is because you don't have any bones, and the British are just not that comfortable with having bones in their fish. Scallops have no bones whatsoever. So when you get a pack of Fraser's scallops, you literally, as Eamonn has done now, get them out of the pan. With these ones, because we want to maintain a good supply on every single day, given how popular they are, and clearly I can see from everyone's comments so far, we want to have them on every day. So we actually blast freeze these straight after they come onto the site. We will have fresh supply, but we blast freeze a couple of them. And just like this is what you end up making. As I said, like 2-3 minutes. So you've got, what have we got on here, Eamonn, then?
So basil, a couple of slices of lemon, a bit of flour, salt and pepper on the scallops, put them in for 2 minutes, flip them over, put in a little bit of butter, a little bit of garlic, cook them for about another 2 minutes, then put in a little bit of basil and a couple of slices of lemon, and Bob's your uncle.
There we go. Look at that. I'm going to have the first one. There we go. Well, oh my God.
Right, and the grill is on for the...
Try that. That is sensational. So a lot of the time,
and I'm not a very good cook, right? This is not, any miracle work. It is actually the quality of the produce that does this for us.
but that's exactly it. And this is the thing, like this is what's so exciting, especially getting to interact with all of you and all the people who are buying on the Pesky market, is that we're not selling these to chefs, to people who've been to culinary school and have wizardry skills with every knife and spatula that you can imagine. Our job is about if we're to do a good job, if we're going to have the impact that we want to have, we need to make eating regenerative seafood as easy as humanly possible. So you're not going to find us putting overly complicated recipes onto the site. We want sort of Raymond Blanc level of quality produce with Jamie Oliver level of simplicity. And I promise you, what you're going to see now over the next couple of months is us continuously making all these beautiful species just as easy as possible for you to cook at home. So that whether you're eating on your own or whether you're having it with friends, you not only are able to say, look, I'm positively contributing towards the fish stocks and the marine environment. Go and have a look and see if you want to show me that. But you can literally dazzle people from the base brilliance of this produce. Oh my God.
Okay, here is some garlic parsley butter, which is, as the name suggests, butter with garlic and parsley, which you're going to rub on the langoustines. I guess the one thing for langoustines, they're a bit challenging, right? Like, so how do you clean them? What do you do with them? What do you do if you've got roe on them? Like, all of these kind of questions that people might be putting people off buying them.
Exactly. So this is a langoustine. For those who haven't seen, this is a langoustine. Now, by the way, I've damaged my little finger, which is why I'm wearing this. I know it looks a bit silly.
It's an affectation. Don't
listen
to it.
Exactly. You're human being. So this is a langoustine. Now, langoustine are incredible. You hear me use a lot of superlatives, but they are an incredible British shellfish species. And I was just telling Tony and Estrella here before we turned on the stream that over 95% of all the langoustines that are caught in the UK are exported. And a lot of the time, that's because it's not that they don't have a good market here. It's because the people who generally appreciate them or have been exposed to them, in particular the Western European countries, will generally get lorries turning up to the dockside, and they will literally gobble up everything, drive all the way down Scotland, back over the Channel Tunnel, and then distribute them across there. So if we're going to have any meaningful impact in terms of being able to get them into your hands, into people whose consumption will hopefully help us to perpetuate the sustainable method of catching langoustine, which is creel caught as opposed to trawl. I mean, trawling is less damaging than some other forms of trawling when it comes to langoustine, but it still has a destructive impact at the base. All of these langoustines that you'll ever buy on Pesky, exactly the same as the scallops, will only ever be caught in a trawl. That's a good one, isn't it? Ever caught in a creel, not in a trawl, and that is a pot exactly how lobsters are caught. So they come out live, we receive them live, and then again, like the scallops, because we know that you guys are wanting them for your own kitchens at home, we will blast freeze them just to ensure that we maintain the quality as they can get to you. And literally all I've had to do, I'm not sure if you can see this here, so I've got this one final langoustine. I've done as much prep as I possibly could, because the last time we did this, we were spending so much time on the camera, like chopping up arbitrary bits of garlic. So when you'll get these, you'll find that they'll come in half kilo packs. So you'll usually get between sort of 7 and 6 at the bottom end and 8 langoustine, which again are all this size. Now, unlike in a lobster, you're not going to be getting much meat out of the claws. The claws are really good, as with all the shells. They're great to keep for stocks. They're really rich, so they're even slightly sweeter than what you'd find with a lobster. That's why, so langoustine is scampi. So those of you who've had scampi, even this sort of annihilated battered versions of them, you'll still remember that sweetness of the meat. So all we're going to do with this is we're not going to bother with anything on the claws. We're just going to split them in half, and we're going to rub butter on the top of them. So here, I turn them onto their back. A few of them might have roe, by the way. So you might see, so this one here, just next to me, let me see if I can show you. You get the odd one that has a little bit of roe on it. So you can either keep that and cook it, or you can brush it off. By the time they get to you, you'll be able to brush them off directly. But let's just say that, or like majority of them won't have it. You need a sharp knife. And critically, it does need to be a sharp knife, because a blunt knife just won't go through the shell, and it definitely will almost like, it'll be like a bear filleting a fish. It'll just be like all gnarled. So take your sharp knife, literally just split it down the middle, like that. That's it. And I'm not a wizardry chef. I know you probably think I am, based on the aplomb of which I've managed all the elements until now, but I'm not a wizardry chef. And that is it. So what we've done here, we've split it. And let me show you the insides. I mean, it's a bit gruesome, but all you get is this beautiful, clean.
This is marked as not for kids.
This is not for kids. But you can, the thing to do, and again, this is a bit weird, but just smell it. And it just literally smells fresh. It literally is so, and you get the natural sweetness coming through. And again, that's because we've taken it straight when they're alive. We've blast frozen them. When they arrive at yours, by the way, there's two things you could do. If you want to eat them straight off, eat them that day. You don't want to leave them for longer than that. But they'll be maybe partially thawed, but you can put them straight back in the freezer and keep them there for a month or so. But my strong suggestion is eat them on their way to get into you, because they will have thawed at a very slow process. There's no degradation to the meat or anything that's happened in that time. And so that is why all of us sat here, we can literally just get this beautiful smell. And I'm going to compound that smell now by putting some garlic and parsley butter on it.
There you go.
There we go. So again, another beautiful dish. So let me show you. So it literally is garlic, parsley, and butter melted into a pan, like Fisher Price, my first cooking. Like super simple. And all I'm doing is rubbing it on the insides of the meat. Because what this is going to do, a bit like grilled cheese, let's say this is the equivalent of a grilled cheese, is it's going to melt that butter, that parsley, and especially that garlic into the top layer of the meat, but the base is going to remain gorgeously sweet and sort of natural. So it's not going to be too overpowering. And because the meats aren't overtly thick, this will grill in a minute and a half at high heat. And it's really, in fact, you know what, let's just be a bit.
Just dunk it on, yeah.
Let's just be a bit gratuitous.
Mike asked about the wine. It is white wine, so we've got a couple of them here tonight. We've got a Kyrenia from Greece, which is really nice with the haddock, and the scallops, a little bit of acidity. And then, because we're having some salad, a Gorge Stravina for the monkfish that we'll have in a couple of minutes' time as well. So a few options on the wine front. This is my Keith Floyd.
This is Keith. So I'm going to.
I'm never going to get.
Let's see if I'm going to show you here. Hopefully, it doesn't ruin it. So, okay, so this is, you'll see here on the Langoustine. So it's a very simple, like incredibly simple. All we're going to do now is pop this in the grill for literally a minute and a half. So this is going in at the highest. Either the highest or the second highest setting you can get on the grill. So I'm going to put it right at the top. Yeah. We're going to leave that there a bit more. Leave that there for a minute and a bit.
Liz asked, where are the scallop pros? We took them off. Not everyone loves them. I don't know. It's a bit Marmite. I'm not a fan. Ben, I don't know where you sit on the
I think they're absolutely vile. The one thing I would suggest, though, and I learned this, I think, from Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, is if you've got the roe, and this is taking it a little bit far, but if you've got a lot, so there are a lot of people buy 24, 36 when they come and buy on Pesky. Get the roes, stick them in the oven at like 60 degrees, and what you do is you dehydrate them. Just take all the water out. And that's the same thing. I don't know why I needed to explain that. And then they will almost come out like crisps. And if you then get all of them together and you can either do it in your hands or you can put it in a pestle and mortar, you then create this incredibly rich seasoning, which you can either put in with a little bit more salt. But the thing to do is then keep that, store it. And the next time you get scallops, especially if you're not eating the roes, is roll those scallops, like Eamonn did this evening with the ones here, roll those scallops in that roe seasoning. And it just gives a little bit more minerally punchiness to them. It's relatively subtle. It's not actually that subtle. It's still very it's like noticeably palatable. But I just find it enhances it a little bit more. Whereas eating the roes as they come, I just think it's just a bit like there's not much to it. So those are. I'm going to keep
say 30 seconds.
Okay, all right, we're going to keep those there. And it's again like we bought more bread than a bakery can provide, because the best thing about these, once you've eaten the meat, is literally just go and be gratuitously soak them up like flannels, all the garlic butter.
So while you are getting those guys out, I'm going to put the monkfish on. So again, very simple, salt and pepper on it, a little bit of oil in the pan. We're going to put them in for about 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. They're a bit thicker on one side, then a bunch of butter in, and then flip them, a little bit of salt and pepper on them again, and away we go. And then Ben will salad.
Perfect. So I'm going to make the Somtam salad now. My wonderful other half, I don't believe, will be watching this, not because she's not supportive, but because there are far better things that she probably has to do this evening with our 2 kids than watch me chop up Somtam. But what she'll be very familiar with is me cooking this salad. Cooking is very generous. Is preparing this salad from at least 1 dish a week, if not 2. The reason for it is, as you'll notice, I'm not the lean Adonis that I really hoped that I would be at the age of 35. And so there are nights when I shouldn't really eat carbohydrates. And so if I want something to offset that, what I'll generally look to do is have a beautiful piece of fish. Tonight we're using monkfish, but actually what it's almost even a little bit better with is it's like a fillet of something like black bream. Black bream, which is nowhere near as punchy in flavour and sweetness as what you might find with gilthead bream. It's great from a texture perspective, but it's not as punchy. And what you'll get then is if you can do this with some really, if you've got a rice cooker, even better, but a little bit of white rice, somtam salad, which, as I'll show you, is this beautiful sort of umami combination of sweet, spice, saltiness, and citrus. Green salad that just soaks into the rice, but also soaks into the really crispy skin. Like I would eat that 8 days a week if I could do, and doesn't require any butter, which is generally the second most consumed ingredient in my palate. So I'm going to show you how to make it now. But again, just watch how quick it is to make this. As I said, it's just a handful of ingredients. So let's get that. So we've got flat leaf parsley. We've got a bit of mint. That's a lot of. Oh God, that's delicious. A lot of mint.
You can green fruit and veg.
There you go. Exactly.
For now.
Now we've got some peanuts. Do you have any tomatoes?
Toasted peanuts. Yeah.
Toasted peanuts, tomatoes. Now the thing to do here. Oh, that's perfect. Thank you very much. God, it's cool. Wow. Okay, great. So the thing to do. Sugar snap peas. So you sometimes see somtam. Let me put this way. You sometimes see somtam, and people will put papaya. I first learned of somtam from a wonderful friend of mine, a woman called Alice Norman, who, if you're ever up in Suffolk, which is where we live, which is wildly inconvenient, by the way, given that the fishing business is on the west of England, but go to her cafe called Pesky, called Pinch. It's subliminal advertising. Go to a cafe called Pinch. We went around for dinner one night with Laura, my wife, and she served rice, chicken from Sutton Hoo, and this somtam salad. And it is incredible. So let me show you what you do. It's so easy. You literally chop up. Let me get the ball out of the way. Oh, we've got the longos.
These guys, yeah.
There we go.
I'm going to bring them back.
Fantastic. Those will sit for a while. So we're going to take these sugar snaps.
Absolutely amazing.
Just I can smell it from here. Literally really rough chop. Just chuck it all in here. And the reason, by the way, I'm starting with, I'm going to do the sauce now. But you actually want something a little bit, you want something a bit with a bit of weight in it. So when you come to mix the sauce, it's got something to sort of bounce up against. So we've got sugar snap peas. You can use mange too. You can use green beans. Again, you're really getting these ones in for the texture more than anything else. And then you want to use cherry tomatoes. So these are, what's this?
Sugar.
Oh, it's palm sugar. Fantastic. Okay. So you don't need too many cherry tomatoes. Again, you're getting in the. I almost chop my finger off. You're getting both the sweetness, but you're also getting the bit of the liquid that comes from the tomatoes. So I'll do about sort of 6 or 7 of these. So yes, as I said, the best thing, actually, almost like a lasagna or a bolognese, is sometimes to leave a somtam salad out in the fridge overnight. All the flavours sort of compound into each other, and then it's a nice rude awakening when you have a bit of Scotch bonnet at 10 in the morning. It certainly sort of sparks you up, certainly more than a bit of coffee. Now, the annoying thing about this Dr. Evil finger is I can't chop anything without sort of having to stop. So it's very much like Fisher Price for my first chopping. But really just, again, very rough, basic chopping. This is a Scotch bonnet. So we've got quite a lot of heat in it. Then, so that's spice. We're going to add in fish sauce.
Yeah.
So we're going to add in the salt now. So on this, again, you can be quite liberal with it. So I'm just going to add in probably about 1, 2, 3 whole squirts. I'm then going to take, and again, I use my hand on this. This is palm sugar. Now, if you go to a supermarket, what I'd actually suggest is you get the actual a non-dehydrated palm sugar. So it's a bit more like it's almost like a molasses. It's really thick, but this will work just as fine. The reason you have that is that this we'll need to probably put one or two more tomatoes into it just to make sure that there's enough liquid inside the salad. Because you don't want it to be dry. So again, like what you're trying to do is get the balance between sweet, spice, salt, and citrus. So this won't be. It's not necessarily the leanest in terms of sugar. Everything else is good, and I think this will contribute towards your 5 a day. But that's in there. So far, just to recap, so I've got sugar snap peas, cherry tomatoes, Scotch bonnets. I've got fish sauce, and I've got now the palm sugar. So the last thing, so we've had sweet, spice, and salt. Now we just need to add citrus. So give that a bit of a roll. Pop that in there. I'm going to squeeze these out. Give it. I mean, 2 is fine. I'd actually, if you've got an aversion to spice, if you're not a massive fan of it, then I would put more lime in than I would Scotch bonnets. The other thing you can do if you can't get hold of the Scotch bonnet is just get some dried chili flakes. Again, then you can control it. The one thing that happened the other week, which was the consequence of doing almost like a dry run of this recipe, was my 3-year-old daughter Lyra mistook a Scotch bonnet for a tomato and literally ran in like a Disney film, like sort of Hades from Hercules, with her mouth on fire, of which, it was not particularly great. But fortunately, we had buckets of ice cream, which isn't mine, to be able to pacify that, but it certainly took a bit of time. Good, right, so now I've put in all 4 of those elements. So we've had the sweet, the spice, the salt, and the citrus. And now I'm just going to roughly chop some parsley. So flat leaf parsley, including all the stalks. So you want to keep this, I would do like maybe, while it's a rough chop, try and sort of get it down to a fairly small size. Because again, you're going to want all of the liquid from that lime. Oh, I've only done 1 lime. All the liquid of the lime, all the liquid of the tomato to soak up into the leaf. And then create this beautiful sort of almost ever so slightly soggy salad. That's not really a term that anyone would want to use, but ever so slightly soggy salad. Then, there we go, a bit more light. We've only got 2 more things to put in. Sorry, 3. Garlic. So you just need probably 1 clove, one of these big cloves here. See if I grab this one. And again, you don't want too much garlic because it can end up being a little bit overpowering on a fresh salad like this. It can be, because it's not cooked, it can end up being almost a little bit too bitey and too acidic, especially it's like when you get garlic on the end of your fingers, which is exactly what I'm going to do now. So just, again, rough chop this. Really simple. I can literally keep cutting the end of my finger splint. So we're just going to have to settle for large chunks of garlic now. So no vampires tonight. So there's garlic. The last 2 things we've got are a little bit of mint. And again, all of the recipe for this, guys, you can find it on via that email. If not, then we'll send it out to you later tomorrow. But you see, while the monkfish has been cooking, we've been able to make this. And I know I'm being verbose and I'm probably being slower as a consequence of it. But I reckon I could do this in half the time we've done. Right, that's it. Final thing are these roasted peanuts. So you probably don't need too much in it, but again, it just gives a nice sort of dry texture into it to complement the sort of, as I said, maybe the slightly. Yeah, exactly.
Roast them for like 15 minutes.
There we go. Slightly to go with the rest of the salad, which is quite sort of juicy and liquidy. Do you have a fork or a spoon? There we go. So all I'm going to do now is literally mix this up, and we leave this to set. So while the monkfish is in, you actually want to leave monkfish almost like a steak to be able to tenderize down. Oh. So when you give this a smell, you get the spice on the end of your nose. It's like a salad tail. Wah. So you get a spice on the end of your nose, and then the sweetness comes through, and then you get the citrus. What you don't get, obviously, is all the greens yet, but that's because we need to leave them to almost be a little bit aromatic, and they'll soak in. The garlic will soak in with the greens and with all the liquid. And in about 3-4 minutes, this will be absolutely sensational. But the one good thing about this is that when you've got it alongside the meat, as I said, the meat soaks up the liquid really well. But you've got that lovely crispiness. But you feel very full very quickly, and also because the spice stops you from wanting to eat too much. So it is just a magnificent midweek meal. And I said you can do if you've got this, make a big old bowl of it, and then you can have it for the next 2 days. It lasts, and if anything, it ages a little bit better over time. Is that going to be probably a bit punchy?
No, nope.
That's it. But you get it and it's so nice. And the thing you almost don't want to miss out on is the peanuts, because the peanuts give the dry crunch that then goes alongside everything else. I mean, it's just a winner. So that is it. Now how we're looking
is the monkfish. So it's ready to go. Basically, we'll leave it rest, as Ben said, for a couple of minutes, about half as long as you cook it for. So probably 3 or 4 minutes in total, and then you serve it up. We'll stick on a bit of rice as well.
There we go. So that is 4 dishes. So what do we start with? We started with Pesky's new smoked haddock. We then moved on to Eamonn's orgasmic scallops. We've now had our Langoustine, which are grilling and hopefully are going to be absolutely delicious. And then we just soak that up in a sponge of butter. And now we've then cooked a monkfish with the somtam salad. So you saw how easy they are. As I said, we cannot make this produce complicated to cook. Otherwise, no one's going to be able to cook it. And hopefully, challenge us into making other things. What I really want, we're going to go through the questions now. What I would absolutely love is for as many of you to send, whether it's comments or through here, whether it's emails directly to us at Pesky. I'd love to hear, what do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of? Probably me. What do you want? What do you want? What species do you want us to try? Just throw ideas at us. This is the beauty of these mediums, is that we can do anything and there's no consequences to it. And you can't come and find me if I do anything wrong. So anyway, let's go through any of these questions.
Yeah, a couple of questions. So someone was asking about getting fish bones and better ways to make fish stock.
Great question. So one of the things which, so again, a couple of you might have, we get questions like this all the time. We do generate a lot of frames from, especially for those who choose to have their fish filleted. So what we're probably going to look to do is sell what we call the prime bones. So when you get a brill or a turbot or even especially a monkfish bone, is to be able to put those into a pack and then sell them on. At the moment, they are a waste product. That's madness when they can be turned into a beautiful stock, and similar to the sort of Langoustine shells. So in fact, we'll do that next week. I don't know if Laura and Ted are on here, but we'll do it next week. We're going to sell prime bones that you can have for a stock. Then they'll be ludicrously cheap, and you can add them to your order, and it will just be great that you can make use of it.
Mark, what about dogfish? They're absolutely everywhere on the subject of bones.
Now, who's that? That's not Mark Ball, is it? No. Okay, where is it? So
everyone on the call.
Okay, so the challenge with dogfish is they're a species of shark, and there's almost no shark species that you want to eat for obvious. Well, what were obvious reasons.
Shark in New Zealand. That's what you get when you go for fish and chips.
I know. That's why people end up with dodgy, wonky arms.
That's my wife is from New Zealand.
She's got fantastic arms. The challenge with dogfish is that they appear abundant, but almost every species, like skate and ray, all of them are massively overfished, a bit like cuttlefish is now. And so for those of you who need either a cure for insomnia, you can go onto Pesky's site and go onto the impact page, and you can go through to look at how we define whether a species or a fish is regenerative or not in that binary way. And when we looked at things like dogfish, things like skate, there was only one species of skate that actually originally fell into our criteria. And unfortunately, due to the stock population assessment, it's now fallen out of it. So it's just, what we always want to do with Pesky is to create a place where you had absolute trust, no grey scales, so that you knew that you were part of the solution to fish stock and marine environment regeneration rather than potentially part of the problem. So we very much take an approach of guilty until proven innocent. And so while, yes, there are a lot of people who can sell dogfish and husk, and you can find rock salmon in fish and chip shops, but we would never go out and say, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that. But based on what we understand and the data we see, it's just not a species that we want to actively create a demand for. Because as you guys can see, the demand is relatively insatiable, and we don't want to be putting it into places that we feel are potentially susceptible to causing damage rather than regeneration of the fish stocks.
Hi, Susan. Susan asks about herring.
Susan's asking about herring. Okay, so a couple of you would have hopefully seen herring in the last 2-3 weeks. So herring is a species in the UK and caught across all across the world in what's known as ring nets. So any of you might have watched like Deadliest Catch. You'll see a ring netter will literally start and do a big old circle in the water. And that's because species like herring and sardines and anchovies, they shoal in big groups. So the ring netters will literally go a big circle around them and tighten the net up. Now, this is the time to buy things like herring and sardines because they're peak in terms of oiliness and meatiness. So we've had a lot of herring, a lot of sardine on the market. The challenge is that you guys are going through it at sort of an insatiable rate. And while we're doing everything we can to increase our capacity to process, while the supply is there and they're in great abundance, we actually almost can't get enough for your demand. So they should be on the market on Monday based on the tides and the weather. They should be there. So if you're looking for them, that's the place to go.
Flick asked if she can see the Langoustine. So I should come to it with my arms, but there you go. they're in the grill for maybe 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, hardly any time. What's interesting is the roe turns red when you're on it, so you can still eat it. I mean, and you don't actively want to go and catch roe. And for lobsters, you're not allowed to land a species that has roe. Careful of the butter; you might scald your arm like lava. But again, with these, it's so Langoustines are so easy because now all you do is you literally pull the meat out. And you just dip in that garlic butter. Any of you have been to Devonshire? So Charlie and Osh's restaurant, they're selling selling a bucket load of langoustines alongside Fraser's scallops there at the same time. It's just such a beautiful species, and all that's been missing is the supply chain link. So we've built that now. We're going to make it bigger and bigger.
Lobster and crab, or crab?
Yes. So lobster, we actually are looking to bring back. But what I was very uncomfortable with, or what we were as a team very uncomfortable with, was the idea of distributing lobsters through the courier network in an environment that wasn't completely like 100% supportive. So those who might have bought lobster through us during lockdown, you might remember it would have come in a bed of seaweed. And that was great because it ensured that they would never get banded around. But because the seaweed was dipped in seawater, it was really good at helping to keep the gills moist inside of them. So that is what we're looking to bring back with a new point of packaging that can go inside the boxes. So it's not in the short term, but we will have it hopefully in the next couple of weeks. The other part as well is the on crab is we are soon to launch what I believe will be as close to the first sort of large scale 100% traceable crab meat, both white and brown meat, especially brown meat, as that is for me is the most incredible, a bit like the brown meat on a chicken. It's just wildly underused and underutilized. So we'll have that hopefully in the next week or two, again alongside the smoked haddock and all that jazz.
Okay, we have to go and eat in a few minutes because there are people waiting for us, but there are a couple more questions that we want to get through. So to me and Sadie, loving this. You remind me of Keith White. Thank you. That is actually a life's ambition fulfilled. Liz, can we have cuttlefish?
No, can't have cuttlefish. Cuttlefish is an absolute one of the worst examples of. Unfortunately, so the MMO, which is the Marine Management Organization, it's a very short story, I promise, are generally very good on certain species. So bass, we currently can't land bass because the MMO has put in a 2-month ban while they're going through the spawning process. And as a consequence of that, over the last 7 years, the bass populations have grown because they've been given the space. What's happening with cuttlefish is unless you catch them by pot, the majority of that cuttlefish is being caught before they've had the chance to have a reproductive cycle. And because it's not a quota species, so you can basically catch as much as you want, people are literally like, it's like the Oregon Gold Trail. It's like, they're taking everything. So we will have cuttlefish, but only when it's being caught in pots, and that will come from ports around the southwest and southeast, so places like Eastbourne as well, and great fishermen like Graham Doswell. But that won't be until sort of the early spring. But if you're seeing cuttlefish on the menu on place at the moment, it'll be trawled, and we wouldn't touch it with a barge pole.
Some more questions. Hi, Scott. Good to see you. Sarah, you asked about the wine. So Kyrenia, so Greek wine. Not as saline and minerally as some Greek wines, actually a little bit more complex. So it was nice because we had the smoked haddock, and then we've got a Gewürztraminer from Austria, which will go pretty well with the monkfish and with the Somta salad. So both fairly dry wines, but actually really, really good with seafood. And I mean, most Greek wines, anything that comes from kind of coastline or islands is usually pretty good with all things seafood. Flick, how do you get an invite to that table? Well, we'll be doing these a lot more often, so I don't know, maybe it'll be part of the Pesky Fish Royalty program. 100%. Watch this space. 100%. I'll have to ask my wife. This is my house, so.
Exactly.
All right, I think maybe that is all of the questions, unless, a political one, even though we should never get political, but anyway, any post-Brexit positives in terms of UK caught seafood staying in the UK as opposed to being immediately shipped abroad?
Okay, so it's not a positive, it's an accidental benefit, is that because some of the distribution routes have been more challenging now to get especially on shellfish, where a lot of shellfish was going over to the continent, it has created the appetite for those existing boats and merchants to find domestic markets, which is why, again, we're in a position whereby we're starting to get Langoustine ourselves. So that's the only upside at the moment. But I can tell you the one thing that everyone can do to make a material difference is continue to buy British regenerative seafood. And I promise you, if it is there and we can land it and we can ship it to you, I promise we're going to find a way to do so. So please continue support in your gargantuan quantities. We're desperately appreciative of all of that. Yeah, thank you for all of your support over the last few years.
And thank you for joining in. This was a little bit more structured than the first one of these that we did, to say the least. But hopefully the first of many more that we'll do over the next couple of weeks. So as we said, we'll send an email out with all of the recipes and everything else, and a link to the recording of this if you feel like coming back and watching again, or if there's anything that you missed. But appreciate you all taking the time to join us this evening, and hope you have a great rest of your week and weekend ahead.
Thanks, guys.
There we go.
Oh.